Hey, this is another follow-up video on the Phreeze framework. In the first video, if you didn't watch that already, we generated a Phreeze application. I've put a project in Eclipse, and so I'm going to go into some of the main files that comprise the back end of the application. The entry point for the application is index.php. I'm going to skip that because for the most part you don't need to edit it at all. It just reads things from these config files, sets up the framework, and executes your controller code. You'll almost never touch this file. Now, there's three configuration files that come into play. One of them, again, we probably will not touch, global config. You'll only touch that if you start going in and changing the framework itself. And that will be for another video. The two files I am going to go into are app config and machine config. A machine config and app config both have configuration settings, but what is the difference? The difference is if you're working in either a team situation or you have multiple installations of your application, you will have settings that have to do with the application itself that regardless of where it's running, whether it's running on production or a staging server or your local host. And the kind of settings these are what template engine you're using, that application is using, and your route map, which we're going to get into in a little bit. These are settings that do not change. These are part of the application. Now, machine config refers to the machine on which it's running, and so this contains the database connection settings, the actual root URL for the application. These are settings that you most likely will change on every machine that it's installed because the connection string is going to be a little different, obviously. Phreeze uses what's called an MVC, model view controller pattern. That's pretty typical for web frameworks. The controller and the model are located in the libs folder, and the view is actually located in the templates folder. It's not called view, it's called because we actually use templates, but the templates are the view, so you can keep that in mind. So inside the controller folder, we have a controller for each of our tables. We additionally have a default controller that takes care of the home page, and then we have an app-based controller, and all of these controllers inherit from this. Inside the model, we have two classes for each table. We have a class for the table itself, and then we have something called a criteria. These are used for querying the database, updating records, inserting records, and I'm going to get into those in a separate video. Inside this DAO folder is all auto-generated code, and for the most part you don't want to touch any of these files inside the DAO folder, because if you do, when you add or change a column, you are not able to auto-generate your code again. The reporter is basically the same thing as a model, but it allows you to run custom queries so that you can do joins, aggregate queries, and stuff like that, and I'm going to get into that when I talk about the model. So that basically covers the framework file. So inside the scripts folder is really the brains of the operation as far as from the client side. Everything we've been looking at so far has been server side. All of the client backbone integration is in the scripts folder, and we've got a model.js which is shared by all pages, and then each of the customers table has its own JavaScript, packages, services, etc. So the templates folder, depending on which kind of template you chose to do either Smarty or Savant, will have slightly different files. In this case I've chosen Savant, so we're just seeing PHP basic files. Okay, so that's the basics of the file structure that's generated by Phreeze. Thanks for watching, and be sure to check out the next video on routes and controllers.